I didn't tell my husband his mother was in the waiting room. He had missed every appointment I had been to alone for 3 years. Piri, I didn't tell my husband his mother was in the waiting room. He had missed every appointment I had been to alone for 3 years. We started fertility treatment 3 years ago, early spring. The first appointment, he had a site visit that couldn't be rescheduled. Second one, a work dinner. Third one, his gym partner was only free that morning, and I remember that being the one that actually got to me honestly. His gym partner. By the 5th or 6th appointment, I stopped putting it on his calendar at all. I'd just text him the morning of, and he'd write back something like thinking of you or you've got this, and that became the whole shape of it. His mom, Diane, found out 6 months in. She came to stay for a long weekend and opened the fridge looking for creamer and found my medication instead. I hadn't told anyone on his side of the family. She closed the fridge very carefully and came and sat down at the kitchen table and asked me quietly how long it had been going on. I told her. She asked if my husband came to the appointments with me. I didn't answer right away. I think I started to say something about his schedule. She just waited. She offered to come to the next one. I said no, it wasn't necessary. She said, I know it isn't necessary. I just don't want you sitting in those waiting rooms by yourself. I let her come once. Then she just kept coming. For 3 years, Diane has been in every waiting room with me. She held my hand when the second round didn't take. She drove me home after the third round when the medication gave me a bad reaction and I was too dizzy to get behind the wheel. She was sitting right next to me when the doctor said the 4th cycle had the best numbers we'd ever had. She started crying before I did. She also brought snacks to every single one, little things from her purse, granola bars, and those individually wrapped pieces of chocolate because she said waiting rooms make people too hungry and too anxious at the same time, and that's a bad combination. My husband thought I was going to all of it alone. I never told him otherwise. I've thought about why a lot. Part of it was that I wanted him to sit with the actual weight of what he kept opting out of. The other part was that I knew if I told him his own mother had been filling the seat he kept leaving empty, something would crack between us that I wasn't sure I could put back together. So I just didn't say anything. And then another month would pass and another round, and it got harder to bring up the longer it went on. Last month, out of nowhere, he said he wanted to come to this appointment. He said he'd been thinking about it. He said he'd been leaving me to carry too much alone and he wanted to be there this time. I said okay. I didn't call Diane to tell her to stay home. I keep telling myself I just forgot. I got to the clinic at 9:40 this morning. Diane was already in her seat by the window, coat folded on her lap. She smiled when she saw me and patted the chair next to her. I sat down. She held out a piece of chocolate. I took it. At 9:51 a.m., my husband texted that he'd found parking. I looked over at Diane. She was flipping through a magazine. I didn't say anything. He came through the front door at 9:55 a.m. He saw me first, smiled, started walking over. Then he registered his mother sitting right next to me. He stopped in the middle of the room. The other people in those chairs went quiet the way people do when they can feel something about to happen. He looked at her, then at me, then back at her. She set the magazine down. Hi, sweetheart. What are you doing here? Same thing I've been doing for 3 years. He looked at me. What does that mean? I said. She's been coming with me since around the 4th appointment. Nobody moved. A nurse called someone's name from across the room. A woman stood up and walked through the door and it swung shut behind her and the rest of us stayed exactly where we were. He said, why didn't you tell me? I said, I don't know. Why didn't you come? He didn't say anything to that. Diane picked the magazine back up. She didn't look at him when she said, sit down, sweetheart. They're going to call her name soon. He sat down, one chair over, with the empty seat between us. He didn't say a word for the 23 minutes we waited. Neither did I. They finally called my name. Diane stood up with me the way she always does. He looked at her, then at me. She said, you can come back too, if you want to. He stood up. He followed us both through the door.